Hey, what's going guys? I'm Season 4 here. Today I am back for another video. Yes, we are gonna start Festival Collection 2025, but unlike tradition where I usually just do a box opening and I start laughing because I'm addicted to gambling. Today we're gonna start on a very different topic and by far possibly the most controversial topic for festival. We're gonna talk about the ORRs, this set, the six of them, the ACE units. And today joining us we have two guests. We have Mcrafter 3000 back from the dead,
Hello, hello.
and we also invited my cameraman who has joined me for many Stoicheia videos. He's also here to give his take.
Hello.
So, how are all of you today?
Very tired.
All right,
Do not die from work.
not
That's
that.
all I can say.
That's completely fair. I relate to that sentiment a lot. So, okay, let's get started. So, first of all, we're gonna talk about the ACE units. So, I'm guessing for some of you in the audience, you are wondering what are the ACE units? The ACE units are a group of ORRs from Festival Collection 2025. We don't know if there's going to be more of them, but we are simply assessing the ones we have now. Okay, and the idea is that they each have virtually the same skill template, but I'm just going to read to you one of them, and then you'll get the idea. They all have an on-play skill that gives them 5,000 power and an EB3 skill to do something else. And that skill is called the unique skill. You only can use it once per game, right? So even if you cycle the card back to your hand or call it back through other means, you cannot access it, okay? And this skill is only available during the main phase or right phase. You just cannot use it during the battle phase, okay? And then the other skill of these ACE units is that they gain power when attacking a grade 3 or greater Vanguard. They gain 5,000 power, and then they get another 5,000 power if you hit a condition. Although not all conditions are equal, so bear that in mind. Okay, are we ready to go?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Let us first discuss the Dragon Empire Ace unit. We'll start Dragon Empire, okay? My favorite nation, Dragon Empire. So who knows? Maybe I'll do that Dragon Empire rent video soon, or maybe not. So first of all, we'll start with Ritter Migdal. So his unique skill is that he gets a +5, EB3, draw a card, choose one of your opponent's rearguard circles, and until the end of turn, all of the cards on that chosen rearguard circle lose their abilities and cannot gain them back. Then you put all the cards on the chosen rearguard circle to the drop. Okay, and last but not least, the other skill is that when this unit attacks, if your opponent's rearguard is greater or greater against 5, and until end of battle, if your opponent doesn't have any rearguards left, or if their rearguards did leave rearguard circles by your card's ability this turn, this unit gets another 5. So, where are we standing on this card?
I think the card is very like general for Dragon Empire. It's also very typical for DE now because it's just a EB3 draw one, EB3 cycle 3 or there and then snipe one of your opponent's rears. So and it also snipes through like Violet protection, like resist. So I think it's actually quite good. Also can snipe through Obscurate, which is a first for DE. But you can only do that once per game.
Yeah,
And
because it does state
yeah.
that you put it into the drop, so it doesn't count as retire. It doesn't count as bind either. So you don't get
Yeah.
a
So
synergy, but you
yeah.
can get rid of the guy.
Yeah. So in terms of like actual like relevancy, like right now, I think Basagra definitely wants this guy because she goes through the deck very quickly. So she most likely will see this card, and then it allows a single turn of Basagra to actually like give you you can start 4 of your opponent's rear guards in 1 turn,
Wait,
which is
4?
actually quite sweet. Yeah, because because you can do the mace will let you retire one of your opponent's back row. Then you do Basraga's regular Soblast 2 to retire 2 front row. And then you can use the Ace unit to retire one more of your opponent's rears. That also bypasses resist. So yeah, so you can start 4 in 1 turn in Basraga. So actually it's quite relevant for the big Dragon Empire deck right now. And then it will probably only get more relevant in the future. Because I mean draw one and retire one for EB3 was never not gonna be it's
It
never
is
not
it
going to
is
be
it is technically a +2,
yeah.
right? You draw one and you snipe one.
It's never going to be bad, but I think it's also like dependent on the meta. I guess. So I think it's a nice to have in the card pool, especially since Dragon Empire is not really like it's not really like very full of strong generics because you only have Latifa, Shenri,
But
and
the thing is
the
that
overlord order.
for deck wise, right? Like, you would probably play this in Eugene, because Eugene just needs any way to hit on the board. You'll probably play this in Wearable Dragon, because Wearable Dragon has excess of energy, so it can absolutely abuse this. But you can't actually use this in quite a fair bit of decks, like, besides it being like an over glorified Blaster Blade as a tempo tool. Like, you won't play this in stuff like Gandiva, because your anti-synergy versus retire. You won't use this in stuff like Equilibra, because you need the energy elsewhere. You also won't use it in stuff like Overlord, because you just have no space. I don't know. Like,
Mm.
I agree with your points. I think it is a pretty good card, like on surface level, and as a +2, it is pretty insane if you think about it on paper. But as a Dragon Empire player myself, like, you can't replace a lot of things. Like, you can toolbox this out with Shooting Star Vajula, for those of you who know who Vajula is, because you can search the deck for grade 2, right? But like, it's anti-synergy in the Vajula deck as well, because it doesn't bind, and Vajula has a Thunderstrike synergy now with Blazing Star Cross. So like, I don't know, like, I feel like, as much as I want to say the card is good or even widely applicable, I think it's quite niche actually.
Yeah, I think I will agree that for now it's quite niche, but I think it's a good include in any deck that already wants to retire a lot. That's not Gandiva because this doesn't proc Gandiva skill because it's not retire, but any other deck that likes to retire a lot or benefits from, slowing down your opponent's game plan would want to play this card anyways.
So I guess that only leaves us with two candidates, which is, Eugene and Wirabel. Right? Like,
Yeah,
you won't play this in Spill.
for now, I guess, yeah.
Alright, that's fair. Mr. Cameraman, any add-ons? Or shall we move on? What do you think? Do you think we can put the Dragon Empire card as good for its niches?
I would say good for its niches. I do agree with what Mcrafter 3000 overall said. I also want to highlight Best Harvest, the interaction as well, because Best Harvest specifically needs you to retire during the main phase. This
Yeah.
card puts it to drop, so you
Yeah,
don't
it doesn't
trigger some
count.
of your
It doesn't count for retire, it doesn't count bind. So like, half of Dragon Empire
yeah
decks are just locked out of that synergy. Like, you can't even use it in Vermilion.
yeah. So it's struggling to find a space as well to some degree because there's also better generics to run overall that doesn't take up your resource per se
Like what?
or space,
Like what?
like Shenri.
Yeah, yes, but like Shenri, the slot you play for Shenri isn't the slot you play this guy. Like, they're for different users, I would say. But I guess we
Latifa
can
as
just
well.
leave it. I guess we can just leave it as good for its niches then.
Yeah, it's good for its
Right?
niches.
Okay. Alright. Moving on. Our next one is Dark States. This is Funeral Possession of the Fallen Vala. And his unique skill is that he gets +5, then you EB3, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose one from among them, put into your soul and shuffle. Then you choose up to one card from your soul with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it to a rearguard circle. And then when he attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, this unit gains 5. And if your soul has 5 or more cards, or if you soul blast a total of 3 or more cards this turn, this unit gets an additional 5. So I'll just say this right off the bat. I feel like this card's pretty good. Because, like, even for its battle skill, the +5 and +5, they added the conditions for either A, if you soul blast 5 or more cards this turn, or if you soul blast 3 or more cards this turn, or if you have 5 or more cards in the soul, which basically counts for every Dark States deck, right? Am I missing something? That's just everybody. Everyone either stacks the soul or soul blast the soul. Like, that's what I think. But like, even for the Dragon Empire one, the Dragon Empire one is like 50-50. Like, yes, if your opponent it doesn't have any rear guards left, or if you sniped off one of their rears this turn, it does get the power. But like, there are some decks that just don't do either, right? But for this guy, this sounds like he covers everybody. So what are we thinking for this guy?
I think this might be a bit like over exaggeration, but I think this is like an auto include in most Dark States decks going forward because
Really?
the top seven skill is very unique for most Dark States decks. I think only
You said unique.
I think only like right lines can really do this top seven usually. So the fact that you just have it on like a generic now is very insane. And you're limited and then the second half of the skill is limited right now to just cage 4 rivalties and Vate Rock. And for Vate Rock, if you're not playing Blank Maya, the card has to go back to soul. So It's not even a +1 for the CB. And then this also doesn't cost a CB, so that means you can play this plus fort,
Oh wow.
and then you basically can just shit out a board for free. Almost for free.
On turn 2.
Yeah.
Wow. So judging by that, I'm guessing we can put it as most decks can use this guy. Sounds like he's pretty high up on the list.
For me, I would say yes.
Is there anyone that can't use him?
Yeah, there are. Specifically decks that are quite interlocked with themselves, like Dirfodos and Desire Devils.
Right,
itself.
right. Because Design
also-
Devils have name lock and they have their own EB3 in the Kangaroo.
And also Viaman's Bruce as well. Unrivaled Bruce can still afford, but Viaman's Bruce especially,
Can't.
you won't keep running it because you already have your own version of the Dark States Ace unit called Ellie.
Oh right, right. We do. That's
And
a-
you're not gonna have the energy to use it either ways. You're gonna spam it mostly on Olin and Ellie.
Alright, so I'm guessing we can leave this card as most decks can use this guy, right? Like this sounds pretty good if you ask me.
Yeah.
Alright. That was fast. Brandt Gate. The Brandt Gate one. Vermeil Exodia. Or Exodia, who knows. So his unique skill is when placed +5, then you EB3, look at the top 3 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. If your auto zone has 2 or more cards, if your auto zone has 2 or more of any player's cards, look at the top 5 instead of the top 3. And when he attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard creature greater against 5, and then this one's unique. No pun intended. It's +5k is not by a passive, it's by a cost. And the cost is that you need to rest one of your set orders, and then he gets his additional 5. So unlike for example, Dark States and Dragon Empire, which is if you hit a condition, you get a 5, this guy needs you to pay a cost. So what are we thinking for this card?
Like, I think I would say this card is it looks very good on paper, but when in practice the card actually like feels kind of flat, because all of it just at the end of the day it just you do the EV3 and you're paying like EV3, the nation that already has quite good energy. Like most of the new decks actually have very good energy usage. So like Prison, both Daisha and Daikaiser, even like Velstra, like a lot of decks have like very, very decent energy usage now. So finding space to even use the energy is already a problem. And Brandt Gate also has a ton of very, very strong generics. So Baldery, Bobomine, Besmeria, Habitable Zone, like all these kind of things. Like there is very little wiggle room for deck space to include this guy anymore, especially as an attacker. So
Especially what?
his unique skill would have had to have been really, really good to justify. And I feel personally, top 5 even basically pop duality top 5 is not worth it to me.
Because it's
So
just
I
a
think
net
for
0,
me
right?
I guess it's a net 0, and also it just feels very. It doesn't really like accelerate any deck's game plan. Like you could at least say that like the Dark States one definitely accelerates game plan for a lot of decks. Dragon Empire not really. Dragon Empire is like a 50-50. Like
It's a
sometimes it can
tempo. It's a
accelerate, but
tempo piece.
otherwise it's just there to just like slow the game down for the opponent.
Yeah.
But this guy is like it really just depends what you get on the top 5, and it doesn't. And if the top 5 doesn't help you, then basically like the guy basically just did absolutely nothing.
And to make matters worse for this guy, which is why I'm considering putting him at utter crap, is that his skill needs you to rest one of your set orders. Like there are a lot of decks that actually now rest their own set orders, like Dayusha, Daikaiser, Akite, Eva. I actually think like not a lot of decks will end up using this guy because you don't actually have the opportunity to rest a set order. Yet alone, like for example, decks like Vanguard, I'm a huge Vanguard fan. You download the set order into your soul, right? So you don't have the chance to even rest a set order. So like, I don't know. It seems pretty bad to me. But then again, there is one deck I can think of that will absolutely abuse this card, sorry, and that's Rotovisor. Rotovisor, I know I talked a lot about him on this channel, but Rotovisor not only has a lot of excess energy, which this guy can burn off for 3EB, but Rotovisor can stand all of its arenas again, thanks to Travan Rotovisor. So there's actually an argument that this guy is like really broken in Rotovisor because you can just get the full effect no matter what, 100% of the time. But other than that, I don't know. Besides Rotovisor, I guess you can play this in Edo Grammar to dig for your pieces.
Yeah, bro. I think Elder Gamer definitely will appreciate this guy because he is a very piece reliant.
The thing is
Yeah.
that this guy on Twitter, like I see this guy being gassed up by everyone on Twitter when they talk about the ace units. Like I see this guy being put in decks like freaking Messiah, who doesn't even have set orders by the way, and they're like, "Oh, this is the greatest Brandt Gate generic ever." I'm like, "Uh-huh." I don't know, like, am I high or like now we're putting it under crap, but do you think we should end it off as good on his niches or on widely applicable? I feel like it's not widely applicable. What do you think?
I mean, it's alright. It's just at the end of the day, you can. I guess if you can get your Renegade generics, he's a good alternate option. It's not really per se the worst either. He's inoffensive per se. At the end of the day, it's still a top 3 at 1, although sometimes you could top 3 all 3 triggers or top 5 all 5 triggers.
Yeah, and that sucks.
But in any case, it's fine. He's very inoffensive overall as an include, even if you do decide to play him. Just I do agree that he doesn't really propel your deck to much heights either. So personally, good for his niches.
Good for his niches? We can all agree on good
Yeah.
for his niches?
Yeah, I think it's okay.
Okay, then we'll end it on good for his niches. Alright, the Stoicheia one. Mutual Thoughts Maiden Pence. I have no idea if I'm spelling that right. The katakana is really small for me to see. Its unique skill is that, it gets the 5k. If it's placed on rearguard other than during the battle phase, then you can cost EB3, look at the top 7 cards of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, discard it, and shuffle your deck. Then choose 1 card from your drop with grade less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it to a rearguard circle. And then the battle skill is that when this unit attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard is greater against 5, and then if there are 10 or more cards in drop, this unit gets additional 5. So I'm gonna start talking about this guy first, because I think there's one very clear application that everyone's gonna start pointing fingers at me for, to the point that I get identified at WGP as, oh, this is the Night Rose player. I'm like, come on, I play more than Night Rose, and that is obviously Night Rose. I love Night Rose. Now, this card is really insane for Night Rose because it basically has the unique skill broken up into 2 cards. It's basically Habitat, if you think about it, or virtually almost V-Series Columbard. And then the other half is just Elvina, right? It's just Elvina's call skill, EB3 call a guy. Like, that is really strong. Especially given Stoicheia doesn't have that many EB options that are relatively more generic. And then the second skill is, it gets 5 when it attacks a creature creator, and then, this unit also gets another 5 if there are 10 or more cards in drop, which is basically just Philander's Condition, or, if you play this in a deck like, God forbid, Burp the Sky Ruler, this is pretty good. So, I'm really biased towards this card. I think this card was custom built for me in a lab. Thank you, Kidani. But like, I don't know. What do y'all think for the rest of Stoicheia?
I guess I should start then.
Sure, go ahead. Since you are the Stoicheia player.
Somebody Stoicheia player. Okay. As a whole, I need to start by saying this first. Stoicheia is a bit weird in the sense that
How's
a lot of decks are very specific in what they want, what they do, what they need. Some interact with the drop, some claim orders as their life, some don't want either and just want to spawn board, spawn plant, spawn whatsoever. So there's a lot of variety in that sense. And because of this weird variety as well, right? Unlike say Dark States where everything is about the soul, so that's why the ace unit is so good in there.
Yeah.
Brandt Gate is the set order in that. But Stoicheia is very varied in that sense. So because of this, it really depends on which decks.
No, but the thing is that
can
you mentioned Brandt Gate, but the Brandt Gate card doesn't even have a set order synergy, right? If anything, it's just using the set order as a count, which is why playing it in decks like Messiah makes no sense. But
I mean, you need to rest the set order to gain the power.
exactly, but like
Anyways.
you may not have that, right? But like for this girl, she is Philander. If you just have 10 cards in draw, which you will by, guarding attacks from people who are trying to kill you, you're gonna get that. It's not too difficult, I feel.
Alright, but overall, I would say, in spite of all this weirdness, I would say she is a very good include for a lot of decks that don't really use energy. For example, the recently revealed Belch, the Sky
The
Ruler,
Sky Ruler.
then especially many of the Dress era decks as well. The DZEC era decks will have a slight issue in including them, but some
Why?
of them still
Why do you say
can.
that?
Because the DZEC era decks, from Lascaria onwards, and Cristianos, from them onwards,
Right.
most of them swear by the energy. The Zoran Nadir also swear by the energy. Lebidras and Storhaju, to some degree, Storhaju also has its own uses of energy with Albina and the recently new Lascaria, also generic insect triple rare.
As well as Shadow
So,
Blade.
yeah. So there's a lot of varied things that's keeping them from using this card as well. However, the Dress era decks, on the other hand, they don't really use energy a lot per se, unless you are a Flagbird, for example. Flagbird is one of the examples of a Dress era deck that got so much overload on energy usage that
Pelagran board.
you never realistically want to use it. But for many of the decks, it is an absolute almost include. You got Magnolia, who absolutely appreciate it. It's a 25k beater that can also rise up to 35k or even more, depending on how you build it
Right.
as well. It's a free revive. You have Lianon, absolutely will appreciate it as well, because again, same thing. A card you can restamp for 35k beat down. You have Granfia. Granfia also needs that revive, also needs that synergy as well to some extent as well. You have Claudine. Yes, Claudine, in spite of having the new Promulgate, she will absolutely appreciate the Ace unit as well, due to the fact that the Promulgate doesn't really give you the full energy cycle. So using the Ace unit to fully cycle through all your energy is really good as well.
So
So overall,
can we say it's widely applicable then? It sounds like it's really good, right, for a fair bit of decks. But the argument is
it's
that for some decks that use a lot of energy, it's locked out of it completely. So can we end on widely applicable?
yeah, you can.
Yeah, okay. I think widely applicable is okay. I just wanted to add like one last point, which is that there is one like currently right now like the most popular Stoicheia that I think most y'all I think you guys can like agree to disagree is that the most popular Stoicheia deck right now is Estacion.
Not
I
Levitros?
think no, it's I think for the right now because it is the most recent sealed product of Stoicheia, I think it is okay.
Estacion, yeah.
Most recent as in because Leonon exists and we've already talked about Leonon. So then the next other like sealed product for Stoicheia and also like the most popular like represented right life for Stoicheia is Estacion.
Right.
And Estacion has very huge energy problems as it is like even without this putting this card into the equation. So I think it for if you're looking as an Estacion player to pick whether you want to pick up this card or not, you have to really think about like, do you really own Elvina number one? And
Which you should, by
when
the
you're
way.
playing the game also like when you're actually like sitting down and playing Estacion, like do you feel like you use like the EV3 core plant token like that Seasons Dragon that much? So you feel like you're not really focused around that Seasons Dragon that does like the EB3 core one plant token, then you are okay with buying this card. I think this card is okay. But if you feel as though like your strategy really relies on that EB3 core one plant token like the Seasons Dragon, then I think this card is not for you. You're just better off just like hugging Elvina and just sticking with Elvina game plan.
That's actually a very fair assessment of it, not gonna lie.
All right, I guess widely applicable. There's no questions asked. This is a very good card. It will see play as long as the deck does not use energy per se. It's almost that per se in the auto include to some degree.
Okay. That you know what? Those are all very fair points. So I guess we will leave it at widely applicable. Sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right, Keter Sanctuary. Oh my, this one is fun because Keter Sanctuary and generics is such a heated discussion. All right, so Knight of the Holy White Iskdit, which is the unique skill is that when placed other than during the battle phase against 5, EB3, look at top 7, choose up to one normal unit with great less than or equal to your Vanguard and call it. choose either that unit or this unit, and this unit cannot be chosen or retired by your opponent's card abilities until the end of your opponent's next turn. So again, reminder, you can choose either itself or the unit you call. Okay? And then when this unit attacks, if your opponent's Vanguard is greater or greater, against 5 for the battle skill, and if you have 4 more rear guards, this unit gets another 5. So again, this is slightly worse than default because default says 4 more units. This one says 4 more rear guards. So this is the Alfred skill. This is King of Knights Alfred. But I just want to put this out there because I know someone will try and beat me to it. Please, God, do not play this in Alfred. Alfred as a deck is not just so bad. Alfred uses so much energy, it's not even funny. So playing a card that takes even more EB3, you're not gonna get either skill up. And Alfred needs to use his EB3 skill every damn turn in order to get even a decent, somewhat breakaway net zero. So please do not play this in Alfred, I beg you. But let's move on. Keter Sanctuary, in terms of generics, there's a lot of them, right? So like, do we see this being as popular as, Keter Pile, Order Core, Veltrosa, Selgaon, etc., etc.? What do we think? What do you think?
The thing is, at the end of the day, with all Keter Sanctuary generics, it's just opportunity cost when you pick what you want to put inside your deck.
Also,
Because I think many Keter Sank decks right now, I think is they've all been the nation as a whole has already been criticized enough as it is about like, oh my god, it's all just the same like 16 cards you just put inside default Selgaon, Wisdom, PG, and then the rest of it is your deck staples, like so your 3 persona right, your support triple rare, this kind of things. Then that basically makes up your entire deck. And this guy is no different that if you're already playing Wisdom default Selgaon, then what does this card actually add onto that game plan? So not only is it already like eating into your energy, which I would say most decks in Keter right now have decent energy
usage.
outlets that's not just Biscotti. They have like their own and usages for energy that's not just Biscotti. So
Right.
you're already like quite tight on energy sometimes.
So like Raziel already
And
has new berries, so you won't use it. Alden already has like, half of its effects like Rationale, so you absolutely won't use it. You have even cards like, what's another Keter deck? Hound Razor. I don't think you play in Hound Razor, so on and so forth. I don't actually think Keter decks have space for it. But if you don't use energy yet, like for example Phantom Blaster Overlord, Majesty Lord Blaster, Hex of Sorceress per se, like I think you could make an argument that this is a really good tri-lane card on turn 2 for burst aggro. But like other than that though, like that's
it's
very
it's
little in
it's
comparison to
just
the rest of
because
the card.
the effect is so common amongst like other Keter Sanctuary like generics. That's why it's so difficult to recommend that like, oh, you have, or like actually this is a good include. Because if you could include this card in your deck as it is, then you could already be playing Veltrosa.
Right.
Because Veltrosa is the exact same, like it's just 3 extra cards that you can just include in, and it would increase your consistency. But obviously, then that means that your opportunity cost is that you have to play a card that uses Color Blast, and not every deck can afford it. So you have to just look at whether your deck uses a lot of CB, because both of the current like cards that this card is competing with for deck space, which is either Wisdom Default or Veltrosa, are all very Color Blast heavy. So that is one of the counterpoints as to why like you will ever include this card, because it uses energy instead of CB. But if you're playing like a modern Keter Sanctuary there, so like the easiest example would be Raziel.
Right.
You already have new breeze, you already have most builds I think are still going back to Biscotti after the Selgaon hit. So you really do not have energy to use this guy anymore. So yeah, that's the main pain point regarding this card.
Any thoughts from cameraman?
I mean, I think you guys concluded pretty well. So I personally would say this is pretty niche on its own, in the sense that again, I'm not unless you're locked out of default Wisdom Sargon, which is I think also some of them are still pretty pricey. Maybe this is still a auto include in some of your decks if you want, especially if you're not an energy user. But if you're someone like Raziel or whatnot for the Divine side, right, it's not really a card you really want to consider per se. So I say
So
it's good for its
can we
niches.
put it as good for niches? We can, right?
I think
Yeah.
but I feel like if we're putting it in good with niches, then it's competing with the quality of the Dragon Empire,
Right.
the Dragon Empire generic. So I
Thing is,
think
it's also
at some point we have to like we have to feel like have to start ranking like which I would rather see the Dragon Empire one good for its niches than I would say this is good for its niches. So because it really has like no niche to really fill in anymore besides like it's just another version of what has come before.
I would argue that its niche in this case is non-energy decks, right? Like, if you play this in like stuff like Majesty Law or PBO, it could be a life changer, right?
it still could be. I mean,
It could
at
be,
the end
right?
of the day,
But
being able to try lane is not how should I say
yeah,
a joke either.
true. And the retire protection does help a little bit, but like it's so insignificant because it's not like Alden where you can apply it to a mass unit. This is just one guy once. That's it. So like I don't know. But then again, you're right to compare it to the Dragon Empire one if you're talking about good for its niches. But then in that case, then the Brandt Gate one should just be utter crap. Right? Because the Brandt Gate one is using what? Rotovisor, maybe a little grammar, that's it. Right. Like
But
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
right. So
to
like
be fair,
in that case,
at
then
least
this guy shouldn't stand with these two, right? He should be utter crap.
okay,
Yeah.
the Renegade one still at least nets you a hand to some
It's net
degree. I mean,
zero. It doesn't plus.
it doesn't plus, but it's still a technical +1 by
Uh,
default.
okay.
It's still a
Okay.
technical
So
advantage.
good for his niches, but worse than the other two.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? That feels fair. Okay, last one. Lyrical Monasterio. Because lyrical generics are also equally popular, so I'm glad we kept this to the end. This is Embrace Me with Love Octavia, which is, other than plays during the battle phase for its unique skill, EB3, draw 1, and choose one of your rear guards and it gets. At the end of the turn, you may return this unit to the hand. Okay, and then the second skill is the battle skill. When it attacks, the unit gains 5. If 2 or more of your rear guards were placed this turn, it gains 5. So, hilariously, this card has the unite keyword. Right? But then again, like its EB3 skill is to draw a card and then choose one it gets 5. So technically, it's a +1 and a evasion of 1 at the end of the turn. The thing is that because it's at the end of the turn, like it kind of contradicts some of the multi-attack skills that will force you to already add it back. Am I thinking this wrong?
There are some lyrical decks that will conflict with this ability, which is mainly Kyrie and Prisms and Chris Rain.
I see.
But outside of those three, I think most other lyrical Monsterio decks they only bounce through generic, so either Franset or Lyrica. And this doesn't conflict with either of them, so I think it's okay. I think in that regard, the overloading of like bounce abilities is not really that big of a problem unless you're mainly thinking of playing this in decks that already bounce, in which then you're just playing this card for the EV3 draw one as well as the bounce the +10
The
for
plus 10
basically doing
mistake.
nothing.
Yeah, just
Yeah, for basically doing nothing, you just gain +10, which is not bad for Lyrical because Lyrical has a very big issue about magic number columns.
I wish this
Yeah,
card was
that's
a ghost that I can play in Felty Rosa.
but it's a massive auto include in some of the decks as well. Again, especially for the dress era side up. One of the decks I think that comes to the mind is definitely Willistar. As a Willistar player myself,
Really?
I can stand
Also,
because we don't really have much of a strong energy outlet at the moment. Our most recent support it's alright, but you're not really going to use it to get your energy that far either. And the other most popular, of course, energy option is going to be Persia, but again,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
yeah, but that's a generic as well, so we're not going to add that into the equation itself. But
The
it's
thing
a
is
very
that
good.
the thing is that as a mermaid, because I did bring up this race, because lyrical decks and players are pretty racist. The thing is that as a race, being mermaid, you can use this with the mermaid searcher in DZBTO8, right? So technically, this is a really good card for Chris Rain and Kyrie. Unless I'm
Yeah,
getting
the
this wrong.
um, I'm not I'm not very certain, but maybe Vert and Labrador can somewhat get some use out of it as well.
So do we say it's good for his niches? as the head of good for his niches or widely applicable?
I am way towards widely applicable to some degree. It's still a very good card, especially for most of the non-energy users. That's the thing. Like, except for decks that are locked into it, right? Like Felty Rosa.
Uh-huh.
Most of the decks absolutely can still see the bounce play. It's still a draw one as well.
Yeah, that's
Which is
what I'm thinking of. It's an EB3 draw one and free power, so like it is pretty good.
Yeah. Like in the decks that how should I say, don't use energy or conflict or do the whole bounce field. This is a absolutely piece of a card actually. That's
Okay.
how I feel.
Okay. Mcrafter, anything to add on?
I think this card is like it's like right above the Keter Sanctuary Ace unit for me. It's like it's really neither here nor there in terms of like because this Ace unit effect is very, very common for lyrical generics these days, especially since you already have Franset as a generic with lyrical. But if you're thinking about it in the decks that don't really use energy, so like what the cameraman mentioned just now with Really Star, and there's also like other decks that don't really care, that aren't really like don't really care about like this kind of thing that already use front set. You can basically just treat this as the fifth front set. So I think it is
Widely applicable.
widely applicable and it's very fair.
Okay.
But personally I would still, because the lyrical decks that I play is either completely archetype lock, so it's Flam G,
FMG,
or Chris Rain, which has excess energy, but you have also excess bouncing because you
right.
play Transect as a key piece.
Right.
Then this card doesn't really do much for me. So I still personally think it's like slightly above the Keter Sanctuary one.
That's fair.
Then I will put it below the Stoicheia one then, if that's the case. That's my personal thinking.
Okay. We'll put it at that. So that will end our tier list with Dark States being the winner at most decks can use it. Widely applicable has Stoicheia followed by Lyrical, and good for its niches with Dragon Empire, Keter Sanctuary, and then Brandt Gate. So again, if you did skip to this part of the video, which I hope you didn't, I hope you understand how we ended up with these conclusions, and feel free to make your own, right? Ultimately, your decks are your decks, our decks are our decks, right? And how we play is possibly very different from how you play. So, if you feel that, this is the key difference maker for your Rotovisor WGP championship, then please buy your cards by all means, because, they are all pretty unique, no pun intended. And I think all 6 of them do deserve to be looked at. But that being said, I want to just spend 1 to 2 minutes before I end this video to talk about the Ace unit as a mechanic. I do want to note that they are all great tools with a skill that applies once per game, right? So if you open it on turn 2 with your 3 energy and you use it, it is pretty strong. I think I can dare say, out of the 6 of them right now, Dark States, Stoicheia, Dragon Empire, Keter, and dare I say Brandt Gate, all can get really explosive on turn 2 if you open them, right? Because, I can't say that for Lyrical, because Lyrical, if you're using it then it's just Melty, it's just a Melty clone, it's just a Vibatsuka clone. But like, if you open these cards on turn 2, they can all be pretty insane and swing the tempo in your direction. On the other hand though, if you open this card on like turn 5, turn 6, like, you're not doing very much. By then, you've either already set up your board, or you're already using your key rear guards as beat sticks for your restands and whatnot. You don't really have time for an EB3, okay, now I get a fun small effect. So, as much as these guys are pretty good at what they do, they are very locked at what they do. In the sense that if you, for example, draw the Dragon Empire guy on turn 4 or 5 or Wearable Dragon, you're not doing as much as if you drew it on turn 2, where you could slow down aggro and plus and beat for magic numbers. Do I make sense on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I do that is that some of the decks, like for example, I mentioned Magnolia, right? Magnolia still can benefit from it overall,
Oh,
even
absolutely.
in the league. So there's also Lianon. It will absolutely appreciate 35k, 25k to 35k beater that it can withstand as well, which is not a joke. It's just a life.
Right.
So to some of the decks will still benefit from it in the late game as well. So it's really a toss up, in my honest opinion. It's a toss up per se. Some decks will have that case of why do I see you now? And some decks will be, oh, I see you late, or nerdy, I don't really care. I would benefit from you either ways. That's my personal thoughts.
So yeah, I guess we can end on that then. I guess we are all happy with this discussion on the ACE units.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from you guys. Thank you all so much. I didn't know stuff like the Basagra interaction and like the exact specifics of like, the lyrical one. So like, I'm really glad I could sit down and talk with you all about this. And I hope you guys who are watching this video at home, I hope you guys learned something from this, or if this was considered entertaining to you. Yeah, I wanted to do something different as compared to explanatory videos, because explanatory videos get really tiring for me just talking to a camera. And the whole point of deck discussions or card discussions is that you talk to other people, right? Be civil about it, talk to them. And why not then I get, other people to come talk to me rather than I talk to a wall. So yeah, thank you all both so much for making times out of your busy schedule. I very honestly appreciate it. And I hope to have you all back in the future for my upcoming videos, especially for festival. Who knows? So yeah, anything else
Yeah.
you want to say before we end here? No?
Don't 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 spike my my CNG reprint, guys. This is your final warning. Please do not spike my CNG reprint. I'm begging. I'm actually begging you.
Isn't the price really out though from the Vanguard? Wasn't
No, just don't spike the price, please. I'm begging you, please.
Well, the only final thoughts I have is, I guess stay tuned for Alfred and Bachelor, and just know that these guys are still one-off at the end of the day, regardless of which. So
right.
their impact is gonna be still quite varied and still quite RNG. Like anytime you see them in your damage zone, 90% of the time I would say you don't need to care about them in the equation in your game itself. So
Yeah, like
that's one thing to take note.
if you are building a deck around these cards, just don't. But use them as tools to accelerate your own game plan.
Yeah, that's all I have as a final thoughts.
That is a wonderful final thought. All right, thank you both so much. I see you next time. Thank you all everyone for joining in for this video. We'll see you next time for the rest of festival. Next video, I will be opening festival boxes. So come see if I can open my Alfred or if I have to go begging on the streets again of Akihabara. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.
Peace.
Bye.